You've had the call, but are you really ready for the inspector's visit? I've been a lead inspector for many years and have inspected and reviewed over 200 schools. I know how important it is to get the preparation right for an inspection. In this programme, I will offer my advice on how to make sure the final report tells a story you can be happy with. The inspector calls. You, as head teacher, most want this inspection to be successful and tell the true story of your school. So, from the outset, lead it. Show your story. Share your story. You want the school to be caught at its best. In my experience as an inspector, those head teachers who lead their inspections are those who are happiest with its outcomes. The Section 5 inspection system, which this programme focuses on, is evolving. Some schools will be inspected less often by Ofsted. Some will be monitored more often. Whenever Ofsted arrives, they will want to investigate all the key areas: leadership and management, teaching and learning, performance in tests and exams, and the 5 Every Child Matters outcomes. This is what the inspection will focus on. So how to prepare? I will talk to 3 leading head teachers who have recently gone through an inspection for their insights, and offer my top tips for making sure you provide the right evidence to get your story told. My first tip for an inspection is to prepare your self-evaluation form thoroughly, long before the inspection takes place. Kate, just talk to us a little bit about how you see the importance of the SEF, the self-evaluation form, shaping the Section 5 inspection today.
I think it's absolutely crucial, because what we have to remember as heads is that before the inspector ever sets foot in school, that's going to be the most crucial document that they look at. And they're going to make a number of evaluations about you and possibly begin to form judgments based on your SEF. And so within the very first few sentences, they're going to get a sense about how well you know your school, about how much you're doing, your sense of urgency, your commitment to improvement. And so if that can be right, then straight away I think you're on the right tack.
And what particular advice would you offer to colleague head teachers about making sure that the self-evaluation form is up to date and tells the story that you want to tell?
I think it's important to punctuate your year with opportunities to review the SEF, and not just you as a head, but feed in from your governors, from the parents' community, from obviously the pupils, because it's very quick to forget things that you've done. And so it's important to make sure that you have those opportunities to remind yourself.
The other information the inspector will have is your data. When the inspectorate comes to your school, they will expect you to provide an analysis of the information they have. So my next top tip is that you know your data.
It was very clear for us that because we knew our data, and it wasn't just me, every member of my staff, we meet every 6 weeks to look at individual class data, knows their data and could say to the Ofsted inspector, this group I'm targeting here because. And that was a really powerful tool during the whole of our Ofsted, and for all the inspectors. They kept coming back time and time again saying, you know your data, your teachers really know their children and where their next steps are.
My next tip is about preparation of the school. As an inspector, it is clear very early on if everybody involved with the school has been properly briefed. So make sure you prepare your staff, your pupils, your governors and your parents.
We'd been gearing up to the inspection for at least a year before it came, so we'd been preparing our governors at governors' meetings for just looking at data trends and looking at what they needed to have. I had a meeting with all my staff just to discuss what the 2 days would look like and what was expected of them. We had an assembly with the children, and we just said that there was a visitor coming in to talk about Southcote and to look at how good our school was, and if they met the visitor they had to, be themselves and celebrate what we did well. And actually during the inspection I did see many children seeking the visitors out and saying, oh, can I just show you something I really like about Southcote, because we'd said encourage the children to say what they loved and what they enjoyed about being at school.
The teachers and the ladies can help you if if like someone's being mean to you.
Okay,
Staff had to understand that it wasn't a group of people coming in to make judgments about them and the school.
No.
It was actually far more about they're coming in to judge the school's ability to know itself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And actually the other thing, which they were very reassured about, is that everything leads back to the head teacher.
Absolutely.
For an Ofsted inspection, leadership and management is a key area for the inspectorate. So my top tip is that you demonstrate leadership at all levels, including the governors. How do you demonstrate in the course of 1 or 2 days that leadership and management at all levels are of a certain quality? I mean, what distinguishes it being from just satisfactory to being very good?
I think one example of mine was talking to my lead inspector, was my middle leaders came out very, very strong. They came out strong that they knew the school, they knew the priorities and where they were going, and they were also very tightly involved in the self-evaluation of school and tightly involved in working with governors and working with across the school, not just with their phase, but actually they had a whole school overview, and he said that was a really good way of demonstrating that the leadership at all levels.
The main thing we were trying to achieve as middle managers in our leadership interview was to show that we were in line with what the head had said. We worked very closely as a senior leadership team in the school, and we really wanted to show that to the inspectors, to show that what the head was saying was generally what was happening.
Can you reflect for a moment on anything where governors were able to demonstrate that they actually were governing well?
I actually made sure that I did that in governors' meetings prior to the inspection, said to the governors that that's a good challenge, that's a good question, you need to be doing that, that's really helpful for the school.
I think that the inspectors will look for evidence that governors understand what's going on in the school and the extent to which they challenge the head about the running of the school and the targets for the school. And the level of engagement of governors is a very strong indication of how effective that governing body is going to be.
Apart from leadership and management, the inspectorate is looking to judge the quality of teaching and learning in your school. My tip is to let your teachers and classrooms speak. Have you any advice to head teachers about how you work with the inspection team to come to the right judgments, but equally you have to be open about what the real quality is?
I think that's the crux. You have to be open and you have to say, I know what the issues are of this teacher. However, I'm able to demonstrate this is the support we're able to give that person. We've got a plan for that person. There's a support package there to help them to enable to become a better teacher and to enable the learning in that classroom to be better. And I think that was crucial for us, that we were able to demonstrate what support we'd given to our staff and actually able to demonstrate the progress they'd made.
My next tip is about your pupils. As an inspector, I know the value of the pupils' voices in making a judgment about the school as a safe and happy environment. Make sure the children are heard during an inspection. Your pupils are your best ambassadors.
In some ways, with young children, you can inform them about the fact that an inspection is happening, but I think it would be wrong to try to prepare them about what to say, because they don't. And actually, you don't particularly want children to rehearse saying something that isn't true.
No.
I mean, you have to just be confident that the children are going to, in what they say, reflect what truly happens in school. And I think in many ways they're the best sort of test of what's going on in a school, because you can't prepare them.
And
They'll
I think
tell it how it is.
If you've regularly had those discussions and your leadership team has regularly had the discussions with the children, you know what they're going to say. We were confident, we knew, because we regularly have school counts, we regularly do work and pupil sampling where we're talking to the children about their learning. So we felt very confident, and the pupil questionnaires give us a really good handle on what the children are going to say. I think you're right. Preparing them, it's not going to happen, and you don't want it to feel scripted.
I think actually what you said there, Lisa, is quite important, something about talking with children about their work, because the way they talk with a teacher is perhaps very different from the way they might talk with somebody else who comes in and look at their work. And if you have something like that set up, ours is a bit different from that, within your school, and another adult then comes along and says to the child, can we talk about your work? They are very used to that, and they don't just fumble, they can talk about their work confidently. I think that's quite important.
What does the school do really well?
School is good for going on days out, on trips to the museum and to the library sometimes, and we're really sensible and we enjoy it.
So that's all about how to make sure your inspection goes well. But it's a rare inspection in my experience when there isn't a small wobble or something doesn't go quite as you'd planned. My advice is that you lead the difficult moments confidently.
One of our key issues was foundation stage data and data on entry, and as an LA we don't have a system, and we're currently reviewing it, and my inspector was absolutely insistent that they had the data on entry and not the way we did it. So we had to really argue the case, and I actually asked my local authority advisor for early years to come in and speak to the inspector, and it became something I had to be really, really insistent on, because they kept saying, oh no, but no, I want it this way, and I go, no, not going to do it.
And what was the outcome of that dialogue with the inspector?
The outcome is they took our point of view.
As the inspection progresses, the inspectorate will come to key conclusions about what the school should do to improve further. My tip is that you shape the emerging inspection findings with the inspector. Yeah, in terms of coming to some conclusions about what the school should do to improve itself further, how did you work with the inspector on securing those?
I think that was actually started with the dialogue on the phone right at the very beginning when we were talking about data and issues for the school. It was writing that came up, writing that she'd recognised in the data in certain aspects needed improvement. And that dialogue continued with the inspector. Then she came in, she looked at pupils' writing in their books, she watched lessons where writing was being taught, and all the time I was reinforcing the positives about what was going on, where we'd come from, where we were now. And she could see that. So therefore, when it came to actually writing what was going in the report, what was going to be our key issue, it wasn't just writing, but it was in certain aspects that it needed to be more challenging for children sometimes. But she really acknowledged that a lot of good work was going on.
My final tip is about the draft report you will receive shortly after the Ofsted inspection. This is an opportunity for you not to change the grading, but to make sure that the wording of the text is one you are happy with. So finally, do make sure that you spend time on the draft report.
It's about looking at it very carefully, not just you on your own, other people having a look at it. And it's useful as well for somebody to have a look at it who hasn't been involved in the process, so that as a reader, you know, one of your parents, for instance, you know, might be able to give you an impression of it. And I think checking carefully that it is an accurate reflection and that the text does reflect the grade, because sometimes there can be some ambiguities there.
I'd say go through it, make sure it reflects your school, and if you feel that some of the phrasing or the way the words or the priorities, maybe where priority is given to something and not to something else, to challenge that. I think we made about 7 challenges, 6 of them were accepted and just the wording was just changed. It just made us feel a little bit more comfortable that this was the right picture of the inspection and the right view of our school, so that we would have this document, something that we would feel was part of the school.
So those are my top tips on how to make sure that the judgments that are made, the story that is told about your school, is one which you, your staff, children and governors recognise.